panda had 3 pendants of energy on him, which is just completely imbalanced. Like, the game is over at the point that I can have a panda that does like 20 breath of fires in one fight. Now if you look here, what's happening is Soccer has continued to retrain units throughout this fight. Look at his food count. He's at 79 food. Okay, do observe him running down here to kill this mortar. He's willing to waste a little bit of mana and also a full invuln potion in order to get the kill to get level 6, and you're going to see why in just 1 second. But anyways, Soccer did not stop training throughout the fight. If you want to go back and watch this replay, especially if you want to use this strategy, go back and look at how his food count keeps going up and down during the fight. As he's losing units, he's retraining new ones throughout the fight. And this isn't hard to do, but it's important to do. You have to do it for a strategy like this. A lot of strategies that are based on pushing players, especially based on pushing expos, rely on training new units. Now, right here we're going to see the importance of level 6 on the warden and why it really allows this strategy to finish. Ideally, what the human player could do at this point is he could tank his expo and just hide behind his towers until he got enough mortars to really break these glaive launchers. So what's going to happen now is Soccer's going to send in these avatars of vengeance or spirits or whatever the hell the invincible ones are into the human player's base, and he's going to help use them to focus down some of these mortars. And basically, Sky's going to end this game right before his expo drops because he's going to realize that there's just so much damage from these glaive launchers now on his main that he's spending all of his time repairing. All of his resources are going to repairing. Well, he can't really break 50, it's too much money. He also can't keep training units while he does it. And so this game is effectively over. So here's the deal. What lets this strategy work, number one, is unit preservation in early game. And to do that, it does require that mercenary camp. It requires a few other things. It requires some knowledge of the matchup too, right? You have to understand that the human player is going to come in to try and push your counter expo. So you've got to be willing to build it maybe in a slightly different place than usual. We saw Soccer originally try and build it in a place where most elf players don't build that counter expo, and had that pig not blocked it, he might have actually gotten it up there before the human player found it, right? At the same time, you've got to be prepared to use your warden's mana, and maybe, in your case, if you're playing a game and you have to use a lot of warden to shadow strike footmen to chase them off, go ahead and throw down a shop a little bit earlier than we saw Soccer do, so that you can get clarities on your warden and make the strategy still work out for you. And another huge thing is don't be afraid to delay your tech a little bit. Remember that this isn't a tier 3 mass bears push that you sometimes see on an expo. This is a tier 2 push, a late tier 2 push, granted, but it's still a tier 2 push, which means you can get into tier 2 a little bit later if that ensures that you have enough wisps getting enough wood and that you've got enough control of the map to get your counter expo up, to get your second ancient war up, and then to hit tier 2 and run around creeping while still harassing the human player. Whenever it comes to the timings to abort the strategy, if you start to lose too many units, you may need to look for a more defensive setup, right? If the human player is going to be able to push you and break 50 before you do, you don't want glaive launchers. It's not going to work out. If the human player is putting the pressure on you, those glaive launchers are not going to work out for you in the end. Obviously, if the human player's got the advantage, don't go throw down ancient protectors in front of his base. You're wasting your own resources. You need to look at either getting some map control or getting up to tier 3 and getting your bears. And in a sense, those may be the same thing at some point in this matchup. And also, if you face a very, very early tower rush, I mean, don't be so worried about throwing down a counter expo that you don't build an extra freaking ancient war in your base to stop a tower push on you. When it comes to the skills necessary to make this strategy work, what you need to look for is you need to make sure that you can take care of things going on in multiple places on the screen. I mean, there are tricks to do this, and you'll see players take advantage of some of these tricks by just like clicking a unit to run all the way across the map. Well, they're not going to let the unit run all the way across the map, but whenever the unit starts running, they can look somewhere else to control other units. Then they can jump back to that unit and save it, shadow meld it, different things like that. The other thing is you do need to have an understanding of timing, and you need to find a way to scout your opponent other than maybe just sending in a wisp. In this case, what happened a lot of times was if you watch this replay, the warden actually ends up over at Sky's base quite a few times. And every time this warden is ending up over there, the warden is able to find out information that is going to be relevant to the match. Again, I mean, if there were 10, 15, 20 towers going down and Envy was playing or some crap, I mean, the elf player is probably going to convert to going to bears instead of trying to get glaive launchers and just sitting outside the base doing jack shit. So all these things said, I'm going to quickly go over this strategy in general. At tier 1, you're going to Ancient War creep the mercenary camp, 2 wisps, 1 archer, Just be intelligent. Make sure the Ancient of War doesn't get any kills, and also use one of your own wisps to scout the human player if you've got enough control on multiple points on the map to make this happen. The next step is to get the counter expo up, even though the human player will be harassing you. This is important. He's going to harass you, but be willing to delay your tech a little bit if you have to in order to get your counter expo up. About the same time you get your counter expo going a decent amount is when you're going to get your next Ancient of War going, and also when you're going to tech your tree. So whenever you start to tech to tier 2, go ahead and start your Ancient of War near the middle part of the map, as long as the human player isn't standing out there with 50 footmen or 50 rifles or some crap like that. After this, once you hit tier 2, you're going to look to buy the second set of mercs that you can. This is going to be the ogre, the golem, and also train 2 hunts. And the 2 hunts are probably going to come before you hit tier 2. And these are simply going to guarantee that the human player doesn't get any control during your early tier 2 time before you have dryads. Once you've got those hunts and you've got this mud golem to slow down the human player, keep harassing him with your warden. The lower the human player's level is, the better off you are as a player. And it's very possible, given that human players try and harass counter expos, that you can limit the human player from leveling. If the human player, has level 5 whenever you go to make this push, you probably need to turn around and run home, because it's going to take a lot more dryads than you're going to have whenever you make this attack. By about the time your first 2 dryads finish up, you should be sitting around 50 food. Get your moon wells ready to break to 80 food. Then, as soon as you get wells set to go to 70, 80 food and you've banked a little bit, break over. 2 glaive launchers, 2 more dryads, and keep training as you go and start setting up buildings at the human's base. When those buildings are setting up, bring in the glaives and start fighting. If you've played the game properly so far, you have got everything that you need to win this fight, right? Whenever he runs at you, pull back, fan and knives, then do the dispel with your dryads, and then you can practically attack move to let a lot of these units get worked down. The dryad poison is going to be highly effective. The fact that you preserved your mercenary units is going to be highly effective against this human army. And whenever you start talking about fan and knives rank 3 on top of a human army, it's very, very powerful. But in the end, the huge thing that makes this work is you being the one to break 50 food before the human player, which is a little bit, I'm not going to say necessarily or always backwards, but it's certainly in your favor to be the one making this move. Anyways, WC Replays, good luck applying the strategy. If you have any questions, I am highly open to attempting to answer them for you, and also I appreciate all the comments you guys have been giving me. Keep them coming to me, and I'll try and work on that. I'm probably going to be making a post here in, well, God, I may even make the post before you even hear this audio commentary itself, but at some point I'll be making a post asking what types of strategies you would like to see covered, or what type of matchup you want to see covered for my next audio commentary. But anyways, WC Replays, you stay classy.